Hello and welcome to our webinar, Library Love for Library Reads. I'm Susan Maguire, Senior Editor for Collection Management and Library Outreach here at Booklist. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some technical details. Links to today's slide presentation and title list were included in the reminder email you received from Zoom 1 hour ago. To download them, please open that email, scroll to the bottom, and click on the links located there. You can also download the slides and title list by typing the URLs on this screen into your web browser. If you have any trouble accessing these materials, please contact us at webinars@booklistonline.com. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions you may have. On the bottom of your screen is a toolbar with a button for Q&A. If you have a question or need technical assistance, simply click Q&A and type your message into the box that appears. We will do our best to respond to all tech-related questions, and we'll pass along all other questions to today's panelists so they can follow up with you after the webinar. Booklist offers closed captioning on all webinars. To enable or disable captions on your screen, please look for and click the captions icon on the toolbar mentioned earlier. From there, you can select show or hide captions from the menu that appears. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of the captions at any time by selecting caption settings. And finally, Booklist expects all participants to maintain an atmosphere of respect and fairness. Anyone who violates this standard of behavior, including engaging in any form of harassment, may, at the discretion of the organizers, be immediately removed. Today, we have the pleasure of hearing from Kaite Stover, LibraryReads board member, Pamela Osti, Senior Marketing Manager, and Kiara Loader, Marketing Coordinator, both at HTP Books, Chris Vicari, Director of School and Library and Retail Marketing at Union Square & Company, and Annie Mazes, Associate Director of Library Marketing at Hachette Book Group. First, we'll hear from Kaite Stover. Kaite is the Director of Reader Services for the Kansas City Public Library. She holds a master's degree in library science and English literature from Emporia State University. Stover is a founding member and former steering committee member for LibraryReads. She is the recipient of the 2018 Margaret E. Monroe Award, 2012 Allie Beth Martin Award, and was named a Library Journal Mover and Shaker in 2003. From 2004 to 2016, Stover wrote the He Reads, She Reads column for Booklist with David Wright and wrote Under the Radar for public libraries from 2012 to 2017. Thanks for joining us, Kaite.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Hope you're not too sleepy after lunch. I'm here to spend a really short time talking to everyone about LibraryReads and going through some really quick details on how you can get involved. First, LibraryReads is a registered 501c6 nonprofit organization, and our mission is to connect adults with books that library staff across the country recommend. We also do free training and events for library staff, and it's all centered on readers advisory for adult patrons. Next slide. So, LibraryReads advocates for adult books of all types, fiction and nonfiction. So please vote for your favorites every month. And anyone who works in a public library in the United States is eligible to vote. It doesn't matter what your job is or your title. As long as you read adult books and you love to share recommendations, you're in. The only requirement is that you need to be signed up for NetGalley or Edelweiss, or both, as working in a public library. Next slide. So, why should you become involved with LibraryReads? Well, for readers' advisory purposes, that's 10 more books you can pretend that you've read. For book group possibilities, many of the LibraryReads blurbs point out book group choices, and I use this a great deal when it comes to choosing book group selections towards the end of the year. And for online use, feel free to use the content for your own library's website, for your social media. We also use it in our in-house displays here at Kansas City Public Library. We put the LibraryReads list near the hold shelf. And then for collection development, you check the list against your orders to add more delightful books to your collection. Baker and Taylor and Brodart offer a pre-filled list every month of the LibraryReads titles, and Midwest Tape publishes the list in their catalog. So it's a way to become more familiar with new books and authors that are getting attention. Next slide. So we say this all the time, but we really do believe that our list is great for filling your brain full of books. Because let's face it, most of our patrons already think that we've read every book on the shelves. So let's keep the mystery going. Why disabuse them of their entertaining notions? Use the monthly list to increase your familiarity with publishers. It becomes really quick who publishes which kinds of titles. You can increase your awareness of new books. That 10 books you haven't read, but you can talk about. Comes obvious what kind of books are trending, and we've all seen the witchy romance and all the comedy romance that's coming out. And in addition to enhancing your readers' advisory skills, because you're looking for appeal factors in the annotations and the read-alikes, I also like to point out that reading those annotations improves your own ability to describe a book using that language and looking for read-alikes. Next slide. This list comes out monthly on the 15th, and it gets published along the website, along with a downloadable link to the PDF. And it's a flyer that you can print out to use in your library for display or handout purposes. We do both at KCPL. You do the voting. Library Reads collects all the votes via NetGalley and Edelweiss, and the top vote getter becomes the #1 pick. It's a top 10 list every month with a variety of genres. And then if you notice at the bottom, those bonus picks, one in fiction and one in nonfiction. So if you're a regular Library Reads user, you're familiar with the pithy annotations that appear on the list every month. And anyone who votes has the opportunity to craft their own accompanying annotation. And we know that for some folks that use Edelweiss and NetGalley, they keep track of what they're reading on there. So they write annotations just for themselves. However, this is a great place to hone your annotation skills. So write an annotation that could be selected for inclusion in the next Library Reads, get some credit for annotating. And while you don't have to submit an annotation with your vote, and I'll be honest, I rarely do, we absolutely appreciate it when you do. After all, that's what makes this list so great, are the annotations and the read-alikes. And the Library Reads gets a report of all the annotations, and they handpick the best ones that go with every title that gets voted. Next slide. So here's a really good example of like a fantastic annotation. You get a brief description of a plot, you get all those story appeals down there, sweet, cottagecore, pure delight, and you know immediately what type of book this is. You get a read-alike suggestion that goes along with the Library Reads pick. This is just terrific. Next slide. So today you're going to hear from some of our favorite publisher friends about their upcoming books and how to get them. And here are some other ways that you can find out about eligible books to read and vote for. So first, if you're going to conferences, visit the publisher booths at ALA, PLA, ARSL, and your state shows. Note though that voting only happens online, and you want to get familiar with finding titles on NetGalley and Edelweiss. Help the publishers find you, fill out those profiles as completely as possible on your accounts. Always note that you work in a public library and you use this account to contribute to Library Reads. If you are involved in author events or programming at your library, make a note of that too. Publishers like to know who they can reach out to for authors that might be on tour. And as you'll see from today's program, many of our publishers have staff devoted to library outreach, and these are great people to contact when there's a specific book you want. That also goes for authors that you'd like to invite to your library. I reach out to all of my library publisher friends first. The publisher newsletters they send out, invaluable. They often have links to the digital ARCs, and they're frequently offered free via these industry newsletters. Plus, I read them sometimes just as a way to keep track of what's coming up, what is new. And sometimes the publisher newsletters are the only way I can catch that because I'm in my email every day, and I'm usually not out of my email at all during the day. Early Word hosts Galley Chats on Twitter. Great place to learn about upcoming titles. And if memory serves, they're doing it now on the first Thursday of each month from 4 to 5 ET, Eastern Standard Time. They're doing it on Twix, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Okay, next slide. So how do you get your ARCs? You can find short videos on our YouTube channel that'll walk you through using NetGalley and Edelweiss, as well as a video tutorial on how to write annotations for a chance to have your annotation featured on one of our monthly lists. The YouTube channel is at youtube.com/libraryreads. Head over to the website, libraryreads.org, and you can select the Participate tab and get a little more information on how to participate, as well as options on how to learn more about the process. Next slide. Also on the website, more links and screenshots for both Edelweiss and NetGalley. And then the next slide. Yeah, these are, sorry, I'm losing a little track here. Do you have to, this is what the screen will look like right away for your digital review copies. And next slide. Right, how you're requesting the books. This is what it will look, follow the instructions that are here on this slide, and this will help you get the books that you want to read. Again, let folks know in your profile that you work in a library, that sometimes you do author events, that you might be working with programming, and it'll be less likely that you'll be declined for a book that's a read now, and you'll just get whitelisted for almost everything. So top 3 questions from new users. Next slide. Do you have to sign up to register? No, you don't, but you do need to register to use Edelweiss and NetGalley as a public library staff member. Can't say that enough. Does LibraryReads send out books? No, we don't. The voters access those titles through those 2 digital sources, or you can get the print arcs from contacting our library marketing partners. And we've got a resources page on the LibraryReads website with a list of all of our publisher friends. Does it cost? No, doesn't cost at all. All the materials on the website are free to any user. No charge to use Edelweiss or NetGalley. We're a nonprofit organization, and we're supported by the generous partnerships we have with our US publishers. So please feel free to contact us at any time with any questions, and do check out the website for more information. The other thing I like on the website, just as a LibraryReads user, is the archive. So if you miss, if this is your first encounter with LibraryReads, go check out the archive of all those marvelous titles you can use on displays and as fills for read-alikes for other titles. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you so much, Katie. Next, we'll hear from Pamela Osti and Kiara Loader. Pamela is the Senior Marketing Manager for HTP Books, where she oversees library marketing. A 20-year publishing professional, she previously worked in children's publicity and marketing for Penguin Random House Canada. Other than reading and catching up on her favorite reality shows, she can usually be found planning her next trip. Kiara is a marketing coordinator for HTP Books. She is obsessed with all things fantasy, romance, and literary, and will talk about them nonstop if you let her. When not reading, she can be found telling everyone she's a Leo, listening to emo music, and curling up in the closest patch of sunshine. Thanks for being here today, Team HTP.
Thanks so much, and welcome everyone. Thanks so much for attending today. I'm Pamela Osti. I'm a Senior Marketing Manager with HTP Books. My colleague Kiara and I are so thrilled to be here to present our upcoming titles, all of which would make perfect picks for LibraryReads. And speaking of LibraryReads, on the next slide is a roundup of all the titles that have been named LibraryReads picks in the last year. We've been so incredibly fortunate. Thank you for your support and appreciation for our books. And now let's move on to the title presentation. So next slide.
So I am so excited to share with you today the book that everyone is going to be talking about this fall, and that's Blood of Hercules by Jasmine Moss. Blood of Hercules tells the story of Alexis, a homeless teen living in a semi-post-apocalyptic world that is infested with murderous creatures called Titans. One day, a blood test reveals that she's actually part Spartan, an elite race of immortal warriors who have godlike powers. Suddenly thrust into the Spartan War Academy, Alexis's fight for survival becomes even more perilous as she is forced to compete in deadly games and physical challenges, all while guided by her 2 villainous mentors. Everyone is watching her, and someone will do anything to ensure that she doesn't make it out alive. Blood of Hercules is an enemies to lovers romantasy where the villains, and yes, I'm saying that plural, villains, get the girl. I had so much fun reading this book. It is such a wild ride. It's perfect for fans of Sarah J. Maas or Rebecca Yarros, and the trade paperback is going to be out November 26th. Next slide, please.
And then author of Beautiful Little Fools and more recently the fiction writer Gillian Cantor is back with The Greatest Lie of All. This is a novel about a young actress who receives the role of a lifetime. She's going to play a famous romance writer in a major biopic. But when she discovers a shocking secret about the author's past, she realizes her own participation in the biopic is no coincidence. Perfect for fans of The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, this is thought-provoking, empowering, female-fronted fiction, exploring questions about ambition, the toxicity of celebrity culture, the unreliability of appearances, and the desire to rewrite and reclaim your own narrative. Next.
So Olivia Campbell has a knack for writing unputdownable nonfiction, and Sisters in Science is no different. It tells the remarkable true story of 4 female physicists who were in the middle of making groundbreaking discoveries when the Nazis took power and forced them to flee Germany. When they landed in America and elsewhere in Europe, they revolutionized the field in their new nations and inspired the next generation of women scientists. Sisters in Science is Hidden Figures meets Oppenheimer and will be perfect for anyone who loves STEM, hidden history, and narrative nonfiction. And it is out at December. Next slide.
And then next up, an exciting debut in historical fiction, Jane Yang's The Lotus Shoes, is perfect for fans of Pachinko and Banyan Moon. It follows 2 young women from very different backgrounds, Ling Jing, a woman from an esteemed family, and Little Flower, her talented maidservant, as they navigate their limited realities as women in 19th century China. Little Flower has bound feet, uncommon for a maidservant, and she's also gifted in embroidery, a skill associated with women of fortune. Resentful of her talents, Ling Jing does everything in her power to prevent Little Flower from escaping. But when scandal strikes the family, both women are cast out to the celibate sisterhood, where Little Flower's talents catch the eye of a nobleman, threatening not only her improved status, but her life. The sisterhood punishes disobedience with death. And if Ling Jing finds out, will she sabotage Little Flower to reclaim her power, or will she protect her? With echoes of Lisa C. and Amy Tan, The Lotus Shoes eloquently navigates complex issues of class, female friendship, survival, and the rigidity of ancient customs. Next slide, please.
So, is she a wealthy heiress or London's greatest con woman? It's the grandest wedding of Victorian London season, and con woman Quinn LeBlanc has 5 days to pull off the most ambitious scheme yet. Trap an eligible duke in marriage and steal the fortune of the richest family in England. Quinn's con leads her into the most lavish balls of high society and straight into the inner circle of the charismatic Kendall family. But the deeper she goes, the more perilous it gets, and it turns out Quinn might not be the only one skilled at deception. Alex Hay is the author of The Housekeepers, and he brings his signature wit and humor to the Queen of Fives. It's perfect for fans of the Christie Affair and anyone like me who misses Downton Abbey. The Queen of Fives is out January 21st. Next slide, please. That one's also me. So I probably don't need to introduce you all to the incredible Pam Jenoff. She's a powerhouse author, New York Times bestseller of The Lost Girls of Paris and Codename Sapphire, and many more. She returns with her most riveting novel to date, Last Twilight in Paris. So it's London, 1953, and Louise is still adjusting to her post-war role as a housewife. At a secondhand shop, she discovers a necklace in a box with the name of a department store in Paris. Louise believes that she has seen that necklace before and that it holds the key to the mysterious death of her friend Franny during the war. Following the trail of clues, Louise sets out to Paris, where she discovers the dark history of the Leviton, a once glamorous department store that was converted into a prison camp during the Nazi regime. But nothing is as it seems, and forces are determined to keep the truth buried forever. Both a gripping mystery and an unforgettable story, The Last Twilight in Paris will move you. Many of our bookish influencers have already been raving about it. They called it, quote, a beautiful story, impossible to put down, impeccably researched, and a must-read. Last Twilight in Paris is out in February. Next slide, please.
And next up, Mallory O'Meara is no doubt familiar to many of you. She was, of course, the award-winning and best-selling historian and writer of The Lady from the Black Lagoon, Girly Drinks, which won a 2022 James Beard Award, and Girls Make Movies, which is a 2023 Junior Library Guild selection. Mallory's also the co-host of the literary podcast Reading Glasses. Daughter of Daring is the first ever published biography of Helen Gibson, widely regarded as the film industry's first professional stunt woman. Mallory illuminates her life and career in exhilarating detail, from her rise to fame in The Hazards of Helen, the longest-running serial in history, to the devastating injuries that would jeopardize everything she worked for, to Helen's trademark stunts that can still be recognized in action films today. She was the first ever to drive a motorcycle over a moving train, a stunt pulled by Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. The story of Helen's pioneering legacy shines a light on the unsung history of Hollywood stunt women and the crucial shifts they brought to women's visibility and work in cinema. Next slide, please.
Unger. Oh, there we go. Lisa Unger. How can we forget? An incredible author. Close Your Eyes and Count to 10 is her newest novel, set on an island where a dangerous game of hide and seek has begun to play. An influencer has invited them all there into this abandoned hotel, and someone is chasing them. It is a high-stakes game of extreme hide and seek with one woman's intense will to survive. It has Lisa Unger's signature suspense. She is the queen of it, and it will be out February 18th. Next slide, please.
Up next from Library Reads Hall of Famer Susan Mallory comes Beach Vibes. When Brenley finds out that her little brother Rick is her friend, she's totally Team Rick until she sees him in a compromising position with another woman. If you were Brinley, what would you do? Would you betray your brother and tell your friend what a cheat he is? Or would you protect him because he's your only family? With a fun, propulsive hook perfect for book clubs and secrets, lies, and betrayals that readers will delight in unraveling, Susan Mallory's trademark wit and heart shine through here, almost as bright as the sunny Malibu setting. Fans of Elin Hildebrand and Emily Giffen will love it. Susan Mallory is the #1 New York Times bestselling author of novels about the relationships that define women's lives, family, friendship, and romance. Next slide, please. And then this is something completely different. So Their Monstrous Hearts, horror, of course, is such a growing category. And we have such an exciting new voice in horror to share. Yi Turhan's novel, Their Monstrous Hearts, centers on a struggling writer who inherits his estranged grandmother's villa and her famed butterfly collection, only to realize the crumbling estate is hiding darker secrets than he could ever have imagined. This dreamlike Gothic novel is perfect for fans of Mexican Gothic and Hereditary. Yeats is a marketing executive at Valentino, and his background in fashion clearly comes across in his lush, tactile writing style. He's also very well connected in the fashion and entertainment industries, and we already have blurbs in for the book from Dua Lipa, Kris Jenner, Nicola Peltz Beckham, and so many others, along with endorsements from authors such as Cynthia Paleo, Lisa Taddeo, and the author of The Spite House, Johnny Compton. Our book will have all the bells and whistles, including foiled cover and custom end papers and these really gorgeous edges that you see here. It's such a treat. And then on the next slide, keeping with the theme of creepy reads, Midnight in Soap Lake by Matthew Sullivan is a novel set in the real-life town of Soap Lake, Washington. But in Matthew's hands, Soap Lake is the location of creepy events, eccentric characters, and mysterious property. So think Twin Peaks or Stephen King's Castle Rock. The novel follows Abigail, a Denver transplant, and Esme, a Soap Lake native who dies under mysterious circumstances. As Abigail unspools the mystery of Esme's death, she befriends an eccentric library patron, a neighbor in recovery, a hotel manager, and an orchard hand, all while trying to uncover more about the legend of a mythic figure named Treetop. Matthew Sullivan's debut, Midnight at the Bright Ideas Bookstore, was an Indie Next pick and winner of the Colorado Book Award. Midnight in Soap Lake contains some subtle Bright Ideas Easter eggs and is such an immersive read. Next slide, please.
Again, another author I probably don't have to introduce you to, but Alka Joshi has returned in her first novel set outside of the best-selling Jaipur trilogy. When renowned painter Mira Novak is hospitalized, she is expected to make a full recovery, and her nurse Sona is delighted to spend time with Mira, who has enchanting stories of travels and her adventures over the years. The two quickly become friends, but Mira dies under mysterious circumstances, and Sona immediately falls under suspicion. Before leaving the hospital in disgrace, Sona is given a note from Mira written before her death, sending her on a mission to deliver 3 paintings across Europe. As Sona begins to unravel the mystery of this enigmatic woman she thought she knew, more questions come to light. How did Mira know to write a note to Sona before her death? And can Sona discover what really happened to Mira and exonerate herself? Alka Joshi has a rare gift of making historical fiction feel timely and relatable, with compelling writing grounded in history, vivid characters that just leap off the page, and a sweeping mystery. This is Alka Joshi at her finest. Next slide, please.
And then author Kylie Lee Baker is the author of 2 YA duologies, The Keeper of Night and The Scarlet Alchemist, both which released to high acclaim. This is her debut adult title, Bad Eater and Other Names for Cora Zhang, which takes her into the horror genre. Perfect for fans of The Only Good Indians and Parasite, this is an explosive novel that uses genre to explore the harsh social edges of racist street harassment, feminine rage, and the brutal violence experienced by Asian Americans during the pandemic. Bad Eater follows a biracial woman haunted by both her own inner trauma and the hungry ghost she's entangled in a series of murders in New York City's Chinatown. The novel builds to an unforgettable finale. Kylie is such an exciting new voice in horror. Next slide, please.
And finally, let's talk about one of my favorite genres, which is romance. So first we have A Tropical Rebel Gets the Duke, which is the 3rd book in Adriana Herrera's Swoony Las Leonas series. It's the middle one on this slide. So after a whirlwind summer in Paris, Aurora is finally ready to settle down and open her underground women's clinic. But doing so in the Victoria era is incredibly dangerous. And when she finds herself in danger, the dashing Duke Apollo steps in to help. Too bad the two hate each other, in theory. Herrera's books are smart and compelling. They combine rich historical detail with joy-filled romance and a diverse cast of characters. Perfect for anybody looking for their next Bridgerton fix. Cover is not final, but it will be out on February 4th. And then one of my personal favorite books is The Hookup by Kristen Callahan. So Anna Jones just wants to finish college and move on with her life. The last thing she needs is to fall in love with a quarterback, but Drew Baylor has other plans. You see, from the moment Drew saw Anna, he knew that she was the one. Anna just wants this to be a hookup, but sparks are flying, and Drew just has to show Anna that there's something special here. It's a swoon-worthy, spicy sports romance you're not going to be able to put down. I read this in a matter of days. Trust me, it is so compelling, snappy and fun, and the banter is top tier. And then we also have probably my favorite title of any book we've ever released, and that's Scott and Bothered, the companion novel to the also incredibly named Kilt Trip by Alexandra Kiley, the second chance romance set on the beautiful island of Skye about 2 former lovers forced to fulfill the final wish of their mentor. Perfect for fans of Emily Henry. Scott and Bothered is your next favorite rom-com. It's out March 4th. Next slide.
And that's everything from us. Thank you so much for listening today. Our contact info is on the final slide. You can follow us at HQ for Libraries. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Team HTP. Next, we'll hear from Chris Vicari. Chris is the Director of School and Library and Retail Marketing at Union Square and Company, where he's worked since 1997. Songs atop the Billboard chart at that time were Mbop by Hanson and Hypnotize by the Notorious B.I.G. He is a lifelong New Yorker, card-carrying member of the New York Public Library, and attends library conferences throughout the year. When not working, he likes watching movies and TV, running, cooking, trivia, drinking Dr. Pepper, eating Nilla wafers, and of course, reading great books. The floor is yours, Chris.
Thank you very much, Susan. Thank you, Taylor. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here today. Hello to all the librarians out there listening. I am Chris Vicari from Union Square and Company. Before I dig into the spring and summer 2025 list, a quick reminder of what has published recently and will publish in the weeks ahead. Next slide, please. We have Pay the Piper, which is pure horror in the swampy bayous of the South, conceived and started by the master of horror, George A. Romero, and fittingly finished after Romero's death by New York Times bestselling writer Daniel Kraus. The Timekeepers by bestselling author Allison Richman. It's a novel about love, loss, and friendship that transports us from 1979 suburban New York to war-torn Vietnam. There Was Night and There Was Morning, a graceful but brutally honest memoir by Sarah Sherbill that has hints of The Glass Castle. Also got some starred reviews there. What to Cook When You Don't Feel Like Cooking by Caroline Chambers, published in August. It got a dazzling star from Library Journal, was a recent New York Times New York bestseller, debuted at #2. We have Our South, Black Food Through My Lens, a debut by Ashley Shanti with her look at Southern food through the lens of the Black experience. And Bodega Bakes, from Bronx-born pastry chef Paula Velez, a love letter to her Dominican heritage and New York City roots. Both got glowing starred reviews. They will both be speakers on the upcoming Library Journal Day of Dialogue food panel. And Paula is on the Today Show tomorrow morning, so check her out. Next slide, please. Arriving in 2 weeks is the buzziest book at our 2024 conferences. It's Pride and Prejudice in Space, the mother of all rom-coms, set in a universe where spaceships, gowns, and interplanetary travel are the daily norm. Next slide, please. In November, we have Safecracker by Jesse DeRoy, where we meet Duke Duquesne, a thief who's got a dad in the joint, a sister in a coma, and shady federal agents who make him an offer he can't refuse, asking him to break into an unbreakable safe. It might be the answer to his problems until he discovers that some things are best left unopened. Get your tumblers ready for Safecracker. Jesse will also be a speaker at the upcoming Day of Dialogue. Moving into 2025 titles on the next slide, please. Next slide, we have Zoe Brennan, First Crush. We met Zoe Brennan in author Laura Piper Lee's first book called Hannah Tate Beyond Repair as Hannah's good friend. But now in her own story, Zoe thinks she might be the loneliest lesbian in all of Blue Ridge, Georgia. But at least she's got her family vineyard and her father to keep her busy. And with the new wine festival coming to town, it gives her a chance to stick it to the vineyard next door, run by her ex-best friend. Enter Lane Woods, another sommelier who was Zoe's first crush and is horrified to discover the one who Zoe's dad just hired as his eventual replacement. How can he do this to her? With her? It's second chance romance with a first crush. It drips with humor and heat, and where wine and snobbery and pride collide at every pore. Next slide, please. A Rebel Without Claws. It's book one in the Southern Charm series by Louisiana's Juliette Cross. This is a spin-off of her acclaimed Stay a Spell series, which got some starred reviews and struck a chord with romance readers hungry for some light paranormal reads. The bad boy named Ronan Reed is a Texas werewolf with a hot temper. He runs with a dangerous crowd right out of the Double Deuce and Roadhouse, where after yet another bar fight and arrest, Ronan leaves Texas to live with his uncle, the leader of a wolf pack in Louisiana, in a place where werewolf cage fighting is totally legal. Ronan has big plans here, but when he sets his sweet eyes on a sweet witch named Celine, his whole world stops. Celine knows she's in trouble, knows her family won't like this guy. But a question, my friends, why can't she stay away? The answer is because forbidden romance is too tempting to resist. But when the other wolves start circling, how will they respond? Only time will tell. Next slide, please. The Woman in the Wallpaper by Laura Jones. The French Revolution is the backdrop for this novel of the lives of three women who collide during it. We have Sophie, a wallpaper factory worker, her sister Lara, as well. At the factory, the sisters notice something eerie about the intricately illustrated wallpaper. The same mysterious woman appears again and again. This woman is the factory owner's former wife, who they discover met an untimely death years before, and who bears more than a passing resemblance to Lara. As Lara attracts the attention of the factory owner's son, she soon realizes that her life is mirroring the scenes illustrated on the wallpaper that line all the rooms. As these occurrences become more unnerving, Lara begins to ask, is history repeating itself? And will she share the same tragic fate as the woman in the wallpaper, out in February? Next slide, please. A Poisoner's Tale. Giulia Tofana, a notorious 17th century Italian poisoner. Some think the first female serial killer in history is brought to life in this feminist retelling. Again, Giulia is a professional poisoner. Sounds like a tough line of work. She sold undetectable, slow-acting poison to women who wanted to murder their husbands because of domestic abuse or other forms of violence at home, weaving together the stories of the women Giulia helped, the men she killed, and those who wanted her dead. This is a tale of secrets, vengeance, and sin in the back streets of Rome, in a time when women have no voice, and justice sometimes is best served in a cup of broth. Next, in nonfiction, we have The Secret History of the Five Eyes. If you've never heard the Five Eyes, you might not be alone. But it's not a new organization. It's an intelligence network established after World War II between the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. It's supposed to be a cooperative arrangement for sharing signal intelligence, but recently it's become a more integral part of operations as threats of cybersecurity have only grown more intense. Its achievements range from back in the day, hunting Soviet spies during the Cold War, to more recently exposing Russia collusion in the 2016 presidential campaign. Recent accusations against China of intellectual property theft, and also the talk of the ban on TikTok on government devices. Award-winning writer Richard Kerbaj draws on interviews with intelligence officials, world leaders, and recently declassified archives, those are always interesting, to reveal the achievements and mistakes behind the alliance. Next is Two Sisters by Rosie Whitehouse. The two sisters are her own mother-in-law and aunt, Marion and Huguette Muller. Their family was torn apart when the Nazis invaded France in 1940. After their mother was deported to a concentration camp, the sisters fled to the small alpine ski resort village where they were rescued by a brave young doctor. Questions arose, such as why did this doctor shelter them, and was their mother betrayed? As you read, also deeper moral questions about French complicity, duty to your country, and duty to other people rise. In the end, she pieces together not only how the sisters were saved, but how so many others were lost. There are certainly many World War II Holocaust chronicles out there, but we think this one explores a different aspect than many of them, Life for Jews in a perilous part of France. Next slide, please. As I move to spring and summer, on the next slide, you'll see 10 Marshfield Square by Nicola White. If you're a fan of clever mystery, maybe like Only Murders in the Building, you can pay a visit to 10 Marshfield Square, an apartment complex in modern-day London where a minor criminal and his wife are found murdered. The elderly landlady recruits two of her tenants to investigate. One is named Audrey. She's liked by everybody. The other is a guy named Lewis. Bit of a mess. Hates his job, hates his life. He's not that fond of Audrey either, actually. As they hunt for clues, they discover that their fellow residents each has something to hide, and they will need to work together if they're ever going to find the killer in their midst, assuming, of course, that there's just one. It's witty, it's twisty, it's light, it's dark, it's sharp, and it's surprising, and it all happens at 10 Marshfield Square. Author Nicola White, fun fact, lives near Stonehenge. Next slide, please. This Monster of Mine, the first in a series by Shalini Abesakara. At age 14, our lead character, whose name is Sarai, was found horribly injured at the bottom of a tower with only one memory of how she got there. She was pushed. 4 years later, she conceals her identity and returns to the scene of the crime, now as a prosecutor hell-bent on vengeance, with a goal to secretly investigate her near death and ruin the man responsible, especially when she learns that since her fall, many others have died suspiciously. As a prosecutor, she is assigned to work with a charming but sadistic member of a quartet of judges who rule the land, also the prime suspect in many of those deaths. And though she must fight against the forbidden attraction growing between her and this judge, she can't help but shake the knowledge that his voice matches the only memory she has of her assailant. It's got manipulation, deception, forbidden love. If you're a fan of Kingdom of the Wicked or From Blood and Ash, this could be for you. Next is The Three Partisans by J.Y. Patoon. Those three partisans are determined World War II freedom fighters. A young army soldier, a playboy American pilot, and a beautiful French woman leading secret missions to smuggle Allied airmen out of France and into safety. Fate forces them together. An easy friendship begins, and a fragile love triangle blossoms. But as real danger mounts, with Nazis closing in, the three are forced to make choices that threaten not only their relationships, but their lives. And when one of the team is captured, betrayed by a mole, they didn't see it coming, it throws into question everything they thought they knew. Three Partisans is actually based on the true stories of the author's father and his time fighting with the resistance in the Second World War. Next slide, please. The Margaret Code, a funny, suspenseful crime drama by author Richard Hooton. Who's Margaret, you may say? And why does she have a code? Well, it's 89-year-old Margaret Winterbottom, who's lived at the same spot her whole life. She knows all the neighbors and everything about them. But her memory may be a little spotty. In fact, she's sure that Barbara, her best friend next door, told her something very important. But when Barbara is found dead in an apparent homicide, Margaret is determined to recover that missing memory. She and her grandson begin investigating, and Margaret just knows that somebody wants her out of the way because she holds the key to solving this crime. If only she could remember where she put that key. The Margaret Code is inspired by the author's relationship with his grandmother, who passed away from Alzheimer's when he was a teenager. This is good for any fan of books with crimes solved by amateur sleuths. Next slide, please. With a Jacket to Come, coming in May, A Showgirl's Rules for Falling in Love by Alice Murphy. The year is 1897, and the craze to be thin threatens to end the career of Evelyn Cross, a proudly heavy vaudeville performer. But that's not going to happen if the man behind the new entertainment palace of New York City has a say. He needs a star for his new show. And when he hears Evelyn sing, he knows exactly who he wants to headline his stage. Real feelings and sizzling romance develop between the two, and over trips to Coney Island, dinner and dancing at Tin Pan Alley, the two find themselves at the center of a culture war, with prudish society on one side and Evelyn's community of diverse working class artists on the other. It's joy, it's struggle, it's love, it's a historical crossover, and it's body positivity done right. Next, please, The Artist and the Feast, also coming in May. It's a dry and dusty summer in 1920s Provence. A young journalist arrives at the farmhouse of a famous reclusive artist, hoping to be allowed to write an article about him. There he meets the artist's niece, who appears to do everything for this recluse. As the journalist and she get to know each other, that they start to reveal each other's scars to themselves and to each other. It's a period drama that challenges the way we view women and the art they create. The Fire Concerto is on the next slide, a debut about a brilliant 19th century female pianist named Clara, who hasn't touched a piano since a concert hall fire left her disfigured and unable to play. When her mentor passes away, she inherits a rare, priceless instrument, once owned by a famous composer that was supposedly murdered. She thinks that the real truth could rewrite the history of music. Moving into Cooking and Lifestyle, Scratch That by Alex Traeger on the next slide, thank you. If your smoke alarm goes off when you cook, or maybe you add salt instead of sugar to your cookie dough recipe, you need to meet the charmingly clumsy and delightful author Alex Traeger, who thinks our messes should guide us as a way to build intuition in the kitchen. You may know her from TikTok, 1 million followers. Her book is Scratch That on the next slide, please. A cookbook written around the mistakes and happy accidents likely to occur in the kitchen. Scratch That will inspire readers to test and believe in themselves and maybe get messy with it. Each recipe is followed by a Scratch That section, which details possible ways each recipe could go awry and how to fix it, all of which Alex learned the hard way. Perfect for any cooking cautious patron. Next is Pizza from the Heart. Paul Giannone, also known as Paulie G, at the age of 56, turned his backyard passion into his retirement plan, which is now Paulie G's. A thriving pizza business that started in Brooklyn has expanded across the country. In his first cookbook called Pizza from the Heart, he and his wife Mary Ann, who go together like sausage and peppers, share their secrets for their addictive pies and also the secrets for their 40-year marriage. One tip being, in both food and love, watch the salt. Over 100 recipes for their popular pizzas here, plus other family recipes, with books like Pizza Night and Pizza Czar. The appetite for pizza is insatiable. We think you could add it to your shelves. Next is the Japandi Home, refers to a fusion of traditional Japanese and Scandinavian styles. And I am running out of time, my friends. Its popularity grew throughout the pandemic. Please take a look at Japandi Home, and we end on Spirited Women. Sammy Katz and Olivia McGiff celebrate the spirit and spirits of 50 groundbreaking women long involved in the creation, serving, and distribution of alcohol. Thank you, Booklist. Thank you, Library Reads.
And thank you so much, Chris. Finally, we'll hear from Annie Mazes. Annie is the Associate Director of Library Marketing at Hachette. Some of her favorite books include The Orphan Master's Son and Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast. Thanks for joining us, Annie.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, everybody, for being here, taking the time to listen to us. It is always very challenging to follow Chris Carey, but I will do my best. Please reach out if you have any questions. I'm happy to talk to you about our titles. If you would like a print arc, and I happen to have one, I'm happy to send it to you. Please reach out. First up, I'm talking about Mothers and Sons by Adam Hazlitt, who the Wall Street Journal named one of the country's most talented writers. This novel follows the fraught reunion of asylum lawyer Peter and his mother Anne, whose relationship was severed by a decision made 20 years ago. This is a compelling family tale that tackles themes of LGBTQ identity and related trauma, as well as the cruel realities of America's modern immigration system. Adam Hazlitt is the acclaimed author of 3 bestsellers, and Mother and Sons is perfect for fans of his earlier work, Imagine Me Gone, or Elizabeth Strout, or Anne Patchett. Next is The Broposal. It's about time roommates Han and Kenny got married, or at least that's all their close friends and family think when they announce their engagement. The twist? The two are faking their whole relationship so Han can get a green card. The line between fact and fiction begins to blur, however, the closer they get to their wedding date. Real sizzling moments happen. A meddling ex turns up, an immigration officer has questions. Will these two bros make it down the aisle for real? This is from the author of The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School and is perfect for readers of Farah Roshan and Ashley Herring Blake. Next is Tartufo. This is a charming tale of a small town in Tuscany and how individuals and communities overcome hardship together. A small town is desperately in need of funding to repair basically everything. They're missing money, truffles, as well as irresistible dogs, a determined bee, a donkey who was narrowly defeated in a recent mayoral contest, the human mayor who prefers being a veterinarian, and many more characters in this beguiling town. Kira Jane Buxton has an extraordinary gift for capturing animals and nature, giving them voice. Kira is always funny. Readers of her debut, Hollow Kingdom, will know this, and this is a perfect read for fans of beautiful ruins and remarkably bright creatures. Next is Life Hacks for a Little Alien, which is a team favorite. The protagonist in this book is just a delight. Before she thinks of herself as Little Alien, our narrator, who's never named, is only a lonely little girl living in Southeast England who doesn't understand the world the way other children seem to. So when a late-night TV special introduces her to the mysterious Voynich manuscript, an ancient tome written in indecipherable language, which is a real thing, and I went on a deep dive learning about it, Little Alien experiences something she hasn't before: hope. Could there be others like her who also feel like they're from another planet? This is a very funny, smart, insightful debut novel for fans of Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine. It's richly authentic because author Alice Franklin has been diagnosed with autism, and she invites readers to experience the world as she does. Next is Nesting. On a bright spring afternoon in Ireland, Kira Fay makes a split-second decision that will change everything. Grabbing an armful of clothes off the clothesline, she straps her 2 young daughters into her car and drives away. Head spinning, all she knows for certain is that home is no longer safe and that this time, when she leaves, she must stay away. For fans of Claire Keegan and Louise Kennedy, Roisin O'Donnell's extraordinary debut creates a devastating and suspenseful portrait of gaslighting and emotional abuse, and even better, a triumphant story about family, love, and finding a new place to nest. Next is The Quiet Librarian, which has a new jacket that I like a lot better. But this is a librarian's quest for answers and vengeance that lead her back to her own dark secrets about an ordinary woman transformed by war, family, and the murder of her best friend. It's told in 2 timelines. Current day, Hannah is leading a quiet life working at a Minnesota library, and her best friend is murdered. Hannah is haunted by the events of 30 years ago and knows that they are connected to her friend's murder. The Quiet Librarian comes from best-selling author of The Life We Bury, Ellen Eskins, and will appeal to fans of Never Far Away by Michael Korcha and Eskins' own Saving Emma. I love this book. I think it is so good. Lots of suspense and a completely badass, can I say that in work? Protagonist. Next up is Green Teeth, which is so delightfully fun. It's filled with friendships, unexpected friendships, and quests. A Jenny Green Teeth is a figure from English folklore that was used to prevent kids from going into lakes and drowning. She's meant to look similar to a human female, but she has rows and rows of insanely sharp teeth that will make devouring the children who come into her lake very easy. This debut rewrites that a little bit. Our Jenny Green Teeth has lived for over 1,000 years in her pristine lake and has never spoken to a human before. But when a witch is thrown in, something makes Jenny decide she's worth saving. Temperance doesn't know why her village is suddenly turned against her, only that it has something to do with the malevolent new pastor. Though they have nothing in common and are sorely misjudged, These two must band together on a magical quest to defeat the evil that threatens Jenny's Lake, Temperance's family, and the very soul of Britain. I'm not a big fantasy reader, but this was so perfect. There were so many quests. They pair up with an adorable, grumpy little goblin, and there's a fairy king. It was so fun. Next up is a house for Miss Pauline. When the stones of her house begin to rattle and shift and call out mysterious messages in the middle of the night, Pauline Sinclair, age 99, knows she will not make it to her 100th birthday. She has lived a modest life in Mason Hall, a rural Jamaican village, educating herself with stolen books, raising her 2 children, surviving by becoming one of the most successful ganja farmers in the area. But behind this seemingly benign facade, Miss Pauline has buried many secrets. The whispering stones, Miss Pauline realizes, are telling her she must make peace with the past before she dies. This novel asks profound and urgent questions about who owns the land on which our identities are forged, for readers of Nicole Dennis Benn, James McBride, and other stories about colonialism and personal history. Next is Red Dog Farm, an atmospheric coming-of-age story about a young man's transformative year on his family's struggling Icelandic cattle farm, as he falls in love, discovers the purpose he's been missing, and seeks to connect with his stoic father, who remains haunted by a tragic past. From the author of the critically acclaimed debut novel, The Memoirs of Stockholm Sven. Next is Stone Angels. Told through the bold, determined voices of 3 women, this poignant family drama explores love, loss, grief, healing, and the sometimes difficult love that exists between mothers and daughters. It's about the questions we wish we had asked lost relatives, the lives we could have lived had we made different choices, and above all, second chances to reinvent ourselves, to confront the sins of the past, and to find lasting love. For fans of Black Cake or The Mountains Sing. Next is The Trouble Up North. This novel is an irresistible mix of the rich setting of Michigan's Upper Peninsula, the power of a generational connection to the land, the tension between locals and the recreational resorters, and an impulsive act that sets a fractured family down a path to redemption. Told in a voice that is clever, thoughtful, heart-rending, and humorous, this is an absorbing tale with an ending that emphasizes that at the heart of every family, no matter how fractured, is a fierce love. For fans of Netflix's Ozarks or Ron Rash's Above the Waterfall. Next is Rabbit Moon, which I love this jacket. From the New York Times bestselling author of Mercy Street comes a tense, propulsive family drama set in Shanghai, where a fractured American family faces its complicated past. With its themes of complicated marriage and divorce, the bonds of sisterhood, international adoption, and a sexual secret and trauma that derails a family, this novel offers rich subject matter and several storylines that will appeal to book clubs. I'm going to leave you with some nonfiction titles. Dirtbag Queen. Because she was my mother, the death of Zaftig good time gal Renee Corin is newsworthy to me, and I treat it with the same respect and reverence she had for, well, nothing. A more disrespectful, trash-talking woman was not to be found. So began Andy Corin's obituary for his mother, a tribute that went on to touch the hearts of millions around the globe a few years ago. But that was just the beginning. This memoir is a story of love and forgiveness, as well as a celebration of a woman who was perhaps not your conventional mother figure, but was beloved and loved deeply. Dirtbag Queen is an entertaining and poignant portrayal of the complex and heartfelt humanity that unites us all, especially family. Next is The Harder I Fight, the More I Love You. Nico Case is a Grammy-nominated singer and songwriter, and her writing is so good. Also, I really like this creepy little figure behind her, and she drew that. Her memoir paints a vivid portrait of an extraordinary life, one forged through a poverty-stricken childhood in, quote, slummy one-horse towns, obsessive desire, bursts of comedy, and indispensable friendships, reflecting on the way art, music, and a deep connection to nature helped her on a singular journey. And last up is The Body is a Doorway. In this lyrical, radically expansive self-portrait, celebrated poet, author, and lecturer Sophie Strand explores her own chronic illness, sickness, and trauma, as well as the resonant challenges and joys of friendship, young adulthood, first love, and fertility. It explores questions both personal and universal. Is there healing beyond the human, beyond the hope for a cure or a happy ending? And that is it for me. Please be in touch. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Annie. And a big thank you to all of today's presenters. Tomorrow, all attendees will receive an email containing links to today's slide presentation, title list, certificate of completion, and video recording. For more about Booklist webinars, be sure to visit booklistonline.com/webinars, where you can view archives of past webinars and register for upcoming ones like those you see here. Attention, all library workers, educators, booksellers, and students. We have a special subscription offer exclusive to webinar attendees. Subscribe to Booklist now and stay on top of the latest books, glean readers' advisory guidance, and get collection development advice through print and digital editions of Booklist and access to Booklist Online. Plus, our Booklist subscription now comes with free digital and shareable copies of our new print product for patrons, Booklist Reader. Scan the QR code or visit our website for more details. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. One more huge thank you to our panelists and to our partner LibraryReads, as well as our sponsors HTP Books, Union Square and Company, and Hachette Book Group. This concludes today's webinar. See you next time.